If you live with roommates, you trust they'll respect your space. You don't lock your bedroom door every night. You don't expect them to hide under your bed. But I learned the hard way that trust can be dangerous. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in New York City. My roommate Chris and I had been friends since college. We weren't best friends, but we got along well enough to split rent. Chris was a little strange sometimes. He'd stay up all night pacing the living room, muttering to himself, or he'd stand in the kitchen just staring at the wall. I chalked it up to him being quirky. New York is full of people like that. I never thought he was dangerous. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to this faint scraping sound, like fabric brushing against wood. I thought maybe Chris had dropped something and was crawling on the floor to find it, but it sounded too close, right under me. Then I remembered, my bed doesn't have drawers. Nothing should be making noise under there. My stomach sank. I froze for a few seconds, straining to listen. That's when I heard it, a slow, deliberate exhale. Someone was breathing under my bed. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone on the nightstand. I flicked on the flashlight and leaned over the edge of my bed. The beam lit up 2 wide, glassy eyes staring straight into mine. Chris, lying flat on his stomach, his head tilted just enough to watch me. I whispered, "Chris, what the hell are you doing?" He didn't answer. His lips curled into the smallest, slowest smile I've ever seen. Not friendly, not embarrassed, just wrong. I jumped out of bed, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Get out, right now." Chris moved slowly, too slowly, like he wanted me to see every inch of him as he crawled out from under there. When he finally stood up, I noticed he was fully dressed, shoes on, jacket zipped, and holding his phone. He walked past me without a word and left the apartment. I locked the door behind him and sat there until sunrise, trying to convince myself it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But when I finally worked up the courage to check under my bed, I found something that made me sick. A half-empty water bottle, candy wrappers, crumpled receipts. He'd been spending hours under there, maybe nights, watching me sleep. I changed the locks and told him to come get his stuff when I wasn't home. When I texted to ask why he was under my bed, he replied with one message: "You sleep so peacefully, it's calming to watch." I grew up in one of those towns where everyone knew everyone, and nobody locked their doors until the night I learned some doors should stay locked. When I was 14, my best friend Evan and I spent our summer evenings at the park shooting hoops until the sun dipped behind the hills. The fastest way home was a dirt path through a small patch of woods. In the middle of those woods sat that house. Everyone called it empty. The paint peeled in long strips, the porch sagged like it might collapse under its own weight, and the windows were so caked with grime they looked black from the outside. It was the kind of place kids dared each other to get close to, but we always stayed on the trail. That evening, the air was still, heavy with the smell of pine and damp leaves. We were halfway past the house when Evan stopped dead. "Someone's in there," he whispered. I laughed until I saw it in the upstairs window, behind the filth and dust. A pale face was watching us. Its skin was almost gray, the eyes ringed with deep, unnatural shadows. The face didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. We stood frozen for what felt like a full minute before Evan muttered, "Let's go," and we started walking, faster and faster. When we reached the edge of the woods, curiosity got the better of me. I turned back. The figure was gone from the upstairs window, but now it stood in a downstairs one, closer to us. It hadn't made a sound, it hadn't stepped outside, but it had moved. We sprinted the rest of the way home, laughing nervously, telling ourselves it was just some old squatter messing with us. But deep down, neither of us believed that. A week passed. We avoided the trail, choosing the long way home. Then one morning, my mom handed me the local paper. There it was on the front page: "Man arrested in abandoned house." According to the article, he'd been living there for months. No electricity, no running water. He survived on canned food, bottles of water, and something else. The cops had found dozens of spiral notebooks stacked in neat piles around the house. Each notebook was filled with handwritten descriptions of people passing by the windows. They weren't just short notes either. They were detailed: hair color, clothing, exact times of day they walked past, conversations they had, and in one of the notebooks, dated for that month, was a page describing 2 teenage boys walking by after dark on Tuesday evening, what we were wearing, what we were carrying, even how I kept glancing over my shoulder. We'd been watched long before we noticed him. Evan and I never took that trail again. The house still stands in those woods, rotting a little more each year, but sometimes, when the light hits it just right, I swear I still see a face in the upstairs window, and it's not the same man they arrested. Sometimes, the scariest thing isn't what you see. It's realizing something has been there all along, hidden in plain sight. About 2 years ago, I bought a used digital camera from a garage sale. The woman selling it said it had been her son's, but he didn't use it anymore. It worked fine. I used it mostly for taking pictures on hikes, uploading them to my laptop later that night. One evening I was scrolling through my photos, deleting the blurry ones, when I noticed something strange. In one of the shots, taken in broad daylight in the woods, there was a man standing deep in the background, just barely visible between the trees. I didn't remember seeing anyone that day, but I shrugged it off. Maybe a hiker. A week later, I went out to the same trail, took more pictures, came home. As I scrolled through them, my stomach dropped. The man was there again. Same spot in the frame, same posture, same expression. It was almost like he was posing. That night, I decided to check all my older photos, the ones from before I even owned this camera. That's when I felt the air leave my lungs. He was in those too, not in every single one, but enough for me to know it wasn't a coincidence. Always in the background, always watching, sometimes closer, sometimes so faint I almost missed him. I stopped going outside for a while. I didn't touch the camera again. Then one night, I woke up to the sound of my laptop turning on. I live alone. I got up, heart pounding, and found the screen already open to my photo folder. A new picture had been added. I clicked on it. It was me, sleeping in my bed, and in the corner of the frame, that man, closer than he had ever been before.